Our final speaker of the session is Warren Stanyer. He's Chairman and CEO of ALX Resources. So Warren, why don't you take it away?
Hello, everyone, and thanks, Red Cloud, and thank you, David, for hosting us today. It's been very interesting listening to the other presentations, seeing them. ALX is a diversified mineral explorer. We have uranium projects in Saskatchewan. We have energy metals projects in Saskatchewan and Ontario, and we have some gold projects as well. I'm just setting my timer here, so I'll make sure I don't go over. One sec, there we go. So forward-looking statements, these statements are available on our website, as are a lot of corporate information. Currently shares outstanding 207 million and change. We have 2.52 million in working capital as of this month, of which most of that is in hard dollars. We will be looking to raise flow through in the future for some of our summer work that we're planning. So ALX was a business combination of Lakeland Resources and Alpha Exploration in 2015. So Alpha Exploration was born of discovery, a spin out from the Patterson Lake discovery, where our partner Fission Uranium bought us for 189 million. That led to hundreds of millions of pounds being discovered along that trend, which hopefully we'll have a moment to look at. Again, on our website, there's other bios. I won't go into all the details, but myself, I've been in uranium for over 25 years. Jody DeRouge was president of Fission Energy. David Miller was president of Strathmore Minerals. Jean-Jacques Gautreau, chairman of the World Nuclear Association. Howard Hogum, a local businessman with ties to Asia. Patrick Graining, very experienced in uranium exploration as well. Our technical team has a lot of depth. Charles Roy was a manager of exploration at Cameco for many years. Seard Eriks has worked with me for many years. He retired this year, but he still consults to us as an advisor. And Dave Quirt was kind of a mentor to me and taught me a lot about uranium when I first started back in 1997. When we first realized we had a uranium project in the North Athabasca. Ken Wozniak is a geochemist who was instrumental, in my opinion, in finding the Patterson Lake deposit by recognizing alteration in a certain drill hole that 9 meters away was the discovery hole, which he advised us to drill close to that previous hole. So he was correct. Larry Hulbert works with us in nickel and energy metals. Our projects in Canada, obviously, we know where the Athabasca Basin is in northern Saskatchewan, and hopefully my cursor's working. Saskatchewan's bounty, if you didn't know, over 900 million pounds has been produced in the last 47 years. Gold, by my calculation and looking at reports, over 1.6 million ounces from the CV Santoy operation. And of course, the Callanan mine at Flin Flon Creighton has produced hundreds of millions of pounds of copper and zinc. And as was pointed out to me by Gary Delaney at PDAC, a retiring government geologist, 4 million ounces of gold. So that's a lot. Here we are in the basin, and in south of the basin, we have some properties as well. But my career started in the northern Athabasca Basin looking for uranium. We made a discovery at Black Lake in 2004, which was exciting. And that was in UEX Corporation, also known as UX. Did a lot of research on this northern rim and always remembered a project called Sabre. So during the staking rush of the fall of 2021, we picked up claims there. Just as a reason for why we work on the edges of the basin is because it's very deep in the middle, 1,455 meters at Rumpel Lake. The models we're all familiar with, I think. This was the original model that people went after, a roll front deposit, and they missed the Midwest deposit by a little bit, looking for uranium in the sandstone. That eventually, when Midwest was discovered, the unconformity model became the norm. That's what we all sought, with a cover of sandstone sitting on the basement rocks. And then of course now basement mineralization is is something that is fairly new and that is in the last 20 years or so that people have been seeking it. So with Sabre, during the staking rush, we picked up these claims. Had we not, they would have all been staked in a matter of minutes, hours. There were people staking here, there were people staking here. But what I knew was that there was radioactive boulders in this particular area. So I got those first, and then we kept adding to the project. What we have here in the northeastern basin is, these are the occurrences. The Nisto mine was about 500 tons of 1% is the generally accepted level that was mined out of there in the 1950s when Uranium City was active. The Fond du Lac deposit sits there, 1 million pounds at about 0.25%. It's very shallow, has no known graphitic conductors, but you have to ask yourself, why is it there? And what is the potential for properties along this northern rim as a result? So the Sabre project has a paucity of drill holes. These are 2 holes drilled by the French back in the maybe 1970. This was drilled by UX in 2006. A couple of holes by a company called Rampart, and that claim still exists as a result. Property is actually larger on these sides because we did add more claims. But what's interesting about Sabre is these boulders that were found on surface that appeared to be local, and also in outcrop, there is uranium mineralized rocks, sandstone on surface with hundreds of meters, say 300 meters of sandstone cover. It's very rare. So that's the puzzle. So the building blocks for a discovery are structure, which we can see in that previous slide. There's cross-cutting structures, there's major structures going through the property, the historical prospecting, which we'll look at in a moment. And what we don't have yet is well-resolved basement conductors, which some of my colleagues have been showing in their presentations. That graphite is deemed to be something that is a prerequisite, usually a prerequisite for uranium mineralization. So if you want to understand today, you have to search yesterday. So looking back, this is a map from Marline Oil in 1979. It's a big map. It was folded into a pocket, and this is a close-up. Our job is to go out this summer and look for these occurrences of where there's up to 300 ppm uranium in some of these boulders, some of this outcrop with phosphate. We don't know if there's rare earth or not because nobody analyzed for it then. And of course, there's no GPS. So that's our task, is to try and relocate these. And this is a picture that they tried to show us where it was, but black and white, 1979, doesn't really help us that much. But they did have 2 color photos in the report. And this particular one was of an outcrop on the southeastern part of Sabre, which we have under claim. And there is a structure running through this where there's uranium and there's phosphate. Here's a close-up. Historical analyses were up to 97 parts per million uranium, 7.33% phosphate, P2O5, in this trench. So why is it there? One of our consultants, technical advisors, Dave Court, proposed this model back in 1984 with another fellow named Hove. Here's the uranium being formed, coming up to the surface, which could be hundreds of meters. You can get at the cooler part of these hydrothermal cells. That's where the uranium could be with phosphate and REEs, and that's why we think Sabre is important, because it could be a living part of this model that sat there for many, many years. People were struggling. And why? Because they didn't collaborate. Here's the outlines of Sabre today. This is UX's ground from 2005 that they flew. And here's the company that was in between. So if they didn't collaborate, how could they ever figure out how to find it? This is a site visit that we made. We spent a day on the property in October of 2021, looking around, but we know that we have to spend a lot more time. We have a prospecting and geophysical permit in application. Should that lead to drill targets after geophysics is done, then we would coincide, the winter drilling permit would coincide. with engagement with local communities. So we need an airborne survey that can see deep and resolve conductors well. And that's the HeliSAM from Australia is one example, and I've been meeting with HeliSAM representatives. This is an example of a boulder from Gibbons Creek, and that's the same style of boulder that has been found at Sabre. Very silicified, very hard, very glassy, hard to break with a hammer. So just going through, I'm at the end of my time. This was drilling from Gibbons Creek that we did this winter, an example of the alteration in sandstone that we're still waiting for results on. Hook Carter, we have a very well located property in the Patterson Lake corridor area, that being Triple R, discovered in 2012, November 3rd actually, the Arrow deposit that followed, and these corridors could still be prospective for it's not a joint venture. Denison owns 80%, we own 20% of Hook Carter. We drilled at 3 properties this winter. We're waiting for results. The results are pending for all 3. And that's my presentation, and thank you very much.